Step into a world where ancient wisdom meets modern mysticism. Introducing the Gnostic Tarot, a powerful fusion of esoteric art and Gnostic themes designed for those who seek the ultimate gnosis. This mesmerizing deck, rich in symbolism, draws from the profound teachings of Gnosticism, serving as an ideal companion for meditation, reflection, and the exploration of spiritual realms. Whether you are a seasoned tarot enthusiast or new to the practice, the Gnostic Tarot caters to all, offering a portal to ancient wisdom and a tool for uncovering the hidden truths in your mystical journey. Unveil the mysteries, embrace the wisdom. The Gnostic Tarot is a timeless companion for your spiritual odyssey. Take a journey with Gnostic luminaries and learn their stories in a visually stunning manner. From Sophia to the Gnostic Christ, their journey is your self-discovery. Choose from the basic deck or the deluxe version, which includes a beautifully crafted journey book and a magnetic storage box, ensuring that your Gnostic Tarot remains a treasured companion on your spiritual quest. The Gnostic Tarot is an original and collaborative effort between Miguel Conner of Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio and Matthew Schmitz of Altrusian Grace Media. Visit our website to embark on your journey today. Syncrasis Publishing, where ancient wisdom and modern mysticism converge. Welcome, everybody, to Aeon Byte. Welcome to this ball of confusion, but that's where the world is today. And the band played on. And don't ask me why. I was listening to that old Love and Rocket song, and I'm looking at the lyrics and going, oh my God, this world has not changed. If that doesn't mean we're not in a simulation or some sort of totalitarian government, I don't know what is. There's still war in the Middle East. Middle class is going to hell. Nobody's feeding the poor. The world has not changed since that song. But the solution is always the same solution. That is gnosis, the inward journey, finding out who you are and what your purpose is to heal the world and make contact with higher worlds, to bring back that healing energy and waking up even more. So my name is Miguel Conner, your Love and Rockets, your Pompatus of Gnosis, and so happy to see people today on Saturn Day here. I hope everybody's having a good weekend, and I already see plenty of people going into the chat. Good to see everybody. Kill Your Egregores, John Macklin, Alexander, and everybody else. And today we definitely have a great special Sabbath show, because I'm very excited to once again be hosting Darren Lorente-Bull to discuss his new book, Searching for the Divine Spark, A Brief History of Gnosticism. Darren, thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you very much for having me. 7 years, or at least 7 years, since the last time I was in the Virtual Alexandria, so it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Really, that long? 2017?
Yeah.
My God, time flies.
2017, I think. Yeah, that's
wow.
Yeah,
that's too long.
When I wrote my book on Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Time flies.
It does. Yeah. Again, speaking of Saturn, he's not kind. You blink, and here we are. Oh well, it's meant to be. And we should, as I say on the show, don't forget about this linear time stuff, because it is the trap of the demiurge. It's one point in time, and here we are with that eternal gnosis. And with us too, we've got Graham Pong. Graham, how are you doing?
Very good, and a long-time Love and Rockets fan. And I always loved that they were They were just updating the story from the '60s that the Temptations told.
Yeah, that is true. So you think the world's getting better, or it's just it's the same damn hologram, Graham?
My guess is, as I like to say, history doesn't repeat itself; it echoes. And I'll be glad when the echoes settle and something else takes over. Hey.
Yeah, good luck with that. Don't wait.
Jump on the Kundalini Express.
The Ouroboros. Yeah, you think
it's
you're
all
up,
in your
and
mind.
all of a sudden you're down at the bottom of the coil. So it is. So it is, yeah. And for everybody in the chat, again, good to see you. If you have any questions for Darren, please super chat them, or insults for me. That way we can separate them and get to them. Darren might be looking at the chat, so if he sees something you want to address, that is his decision. Other than that, not much housekeeping. As always, you saw the intro. For those of you on video, please get the Gnostic Tarot. Feedback has been amazing. Wizards and magicians and witches are having great results with it. Don't forget the Astronosis Conference, August 9th and 10th. Almost done with the guest list, and we'll have the calendar and all that soon in the coming months, but you still can get your early bird tickets before the end of April, and it's $20 off. Not much else on the news report. Great shows coming up beyond this great show, and I will keep you abreast of all these shenanigans. So Darren, let's start with you and why you decided to write this book. It was first in Spanish, right?
That's right. I wrote it through the years of the pandemic, which gives you a bit of a, special. I had the time to actually write and research on a subject that was has always been very dear to me. So yes, it was first written in Spanish, published by a very small publishing house in Spain, Ediciones Matrioska. Yeah, I mean, I thought I should have. It was always important for me to translate it into English, and I thought that it would definitely have more of a, probably have more chance of being read in English. And since I put quite a lot of effort into it, I thought, be foolish of me not to translate it. But of course, that's another job in itself. So translating it from Spanish to English was quite a chore. Even though we've got all these tools nowadays, like Google Translate, obviously the nuances and the jargon of Gnosticism don't lend themselves very, very well to all of that. So it was hard work. But yes, it started off in Spanish, and I've just recently published it, self-published or via Amazon, in English. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the result. I still think I can improve a bit more, but I think for now it's the finished product.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot as we were talking. I love these sort of introduction books of Gnosticism that give you the snapshot and take you on the Gnostic saga. And there are great ones, but the problem is that they can be a little dated. Don't get me wrong, with these books, 80% is right, but then there's that 20% that you want, so that people know exactly where we are, how Gnosticism is manifesting in today's society. So, for example, Sean Martin and Andrew Philip Smith put out great books on Gnosticism. Again, short, great reads, but that was like 10, 15 years ago. So it was a good time to put this book. So I would tell the audience, check it out for sure, because again, it's something you can read on the weekend and you'll get a good snapshot and summary of the Gnostic philosophy from ancient times to today. And always good stuff. Good stuff, man. I'm glad you wrote it. It was a good time to write it or put it out.
No, thank you very much. My interest in Gnosticism started quite a long time ago, and hence the dedication to yourself and Saint Augustine, which it's a bit weird, I suppose, when you saw that. But I think when I remember I was at university and I read the English in the late 90s, but of course that was more like contemporary 20th century French philosophy, structuralism, right, and post-structuralism and all that stuff. So in order to have a bit of a break out of simulacrum and signifiers and signifieds, I stumbled across Saint Augustine's Confessions, which I quite enjoyed.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Saint Augustine is a very interesting character, and of course, when I discovered that he'd been a disciple of Mani, or a follower of Manichaeism, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I mean, he's a founding father of the established church, yet he belonged to this strange Gnostic religion, I dare say, rather than philosophy, which I think probably Manichaeism was a religion in its own right. And then when I was initiated into Freemasonry, that's when I stumbled across Gnosticism again. Very on the sidelines. It's not something that, and I think that Freemasonry is probably more, owes more in its makeup to Hermeticism. It's a more of a, positive, so we say, road than, Gnosticism, which unfortunately can be a bit of a dark road. But again, I did come across that, and I did, obviously many of these old 19th century scholars, early scholars and writers of Gnosticism were Freemasons. So I think it's always, and of course, Gnosticism is something that's I think accompanied the whole thread of the Western mysteries since ancient Christianity until today. But the thing about Gnosticism, of course, is that it's gone through all these different stages where it's maybe by proxy, but it's certainly it's got some links with Hermeticism perhaps through Platonism. It's got some links with Freemasonry, with alchemy, with all the occult tradition. But then nowadays, and I suspect, well, I do believe that it's things, thought experiments like the theory of assimilation by Nick Bostrom, the idea of transhumanism, and again, transhumanism is no way. I wouldn't say it's Gnostic, but I would say it shares some of the aspirations of Gnosticism. It's a kind of materialistic Gnosticism. So it seems that it's more in vogue than it ever has been. I mean, I think it really, and I think your show is a testament to all of this. How many years you've been online now?
Oh, many years. I don't even want to think about it. I start feeling even older.
Yeah, but this is it. I mean, so it's I think I think 20 years ago, most people didn't know what Gnosticism is, and I think now it's something that's it's far more, at least it has become something a bit more, people are more aware of it, or it's more accessible, which is a great thing, because it's I find it's an endless road for all sorts of speculation, thought, debate, philosophical inquiry, metaphysical inquiry, and it just seems to merge with it's like some sort of virus. I don't know, it mixes up with everything, with religions, with philosophical ideas, even with science. It is a very, very interesting and fascinating field of study, that's for sure.
Oh, indeed. Maybe it's like the plasmate of Philip K. Dick. But no, I agree with you. Well said. I would say yes. Freemasonry is a more solar movement, so that's probably why you like Gnosticism, because you're like, hey, man, I need my lunar stuff too, right? Or else I can't be whole. But even stuff like, how it's changed, and I want to talk to you about that. Even something like Rosicrucianism, people were like, well, Gnosticism has nothing to do with the Rosicrucianism. But as scholarship advances, people are realizing that healing, soul healing, body healing is like integral to any Gnostic group in ancient times. So, and what are the Rosicrucians about? Healing the nations, healing the world, all that. So there is a connection that people didn't see. And then, like you said, the simulation 15 years ago, even the books that I talked about, they don't really talk about it. The world has fallen, all that. If you mention simulation, you were considered some edgelord, some fringe guy. Maybe Anthony Peake might be making the connection, but now it's like you said, Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's probable. Elon Musk, when you do the numbers, there's a high 90% chance we are in a simulation. And whether the coders of the simulation are us or some bad guys, we don't know that, but we're getting closer. So that idea has become very mainstream. So many other ideas of the Gnostics, again, like you said, have caught on.
And of course, it's the fact that consciousness is the most important aspect of our condition as humans. That's a fascinating thought in itself, particularly now in this very materialistic age we're living, and where things, you know, and on mainstream established religions have perhaps lost their edge, I think, sometime now. So you know, we need a new religion for the new eon, a new, you know, I don't think that's exactly going to, I don't think, I personally don't think that was Crowley, and I think Crowley's got really nothing to do with Gnosticism, but I do think that his ambition to create a new religion, or a new metaphysical, you know, inquiry, a new way of looking into these mysteries, the mystery of our existence, is yeah, absolutely, it's essential. And I think Gnosticism has got so I mean, we you know, you can look at it from it kind of merges with some scientific, not directly, of course, but you know, even in science, philosophy, Baudrillard, you know, held the great priest of postmodernism, you know, rationalist, very much part of that milieu of 20th century French philosophy. Yet he wrote the poem about Mani when he was young,
Yeah.
and he was very interested in the Cathar movement. Obviously, being French is a big thing over there. But of course, you know, he in his book Simulacra and Simulacrum, he talks about images and how, you know, copies of images that, you know, we've got an image, or we've got or a symbol, we could say, and we could say, okay, this is a real version of the real thing. But then, you know, as these copies are made out of new copies, and we could go back to the you know, emanations, aren't they? Really, the emanations just, you know, diffuse and deteriorate and change completely the original meaning of reality, the original, you know, subject of the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, it's the ability that Gnosticism has to merge with any field of inquiry, be it religion, be it philosophy, be it science, is quite fascinating. You know, there's these links with quantum physics. Again, nothing direct, but it really has this ability that I think no other field of inquiry, of human inquiry, has. You know, and you can take it as literally as you want, of course, and of course the gnosis there is gnosis is not really gnosis, as they say. I mean, you know, we've got Elaine Pages now telling us that, and I think she's right. I mean, you know, that really most of these texts that we consider Gnostics, or most of these groups that we consider Gnostics, particularly the ones with a Christian affiliation, are not really Gnostic. They're just different forms of Christian you know, belief in the early ancient days of Christianity. I find that fascinating as well, because is Gnosticism, is Christianity a sub, you know, that is it part of Christianity? Is it just a shall we say, a subgroup within Gnosticism? Again, we look at Sufism, we look at every single established religion has got its Gnostic fringe side to it, but what's really fringe? That's what sometimes I wonder. What is really fringe? Is it the religion itself, or is it their Gnostic so-called fringe side?
Yeah, it's like Peter Kingsley once said, no, Gnosticism is not a Christian heresy. Christianity is a Gnostic heresy. You can flip it around, and you know, it's where you're standing. But
and
I
it
would
just seems
disagree with Pagels about Gnosticism being an alternative Christianity, but that's just my stance.
But I think what she said, I mean, obviously you can't, I mean, you know, the Sethians and the Essenes and all those, shall we say, non-Christian groups, well, obviously that we could call Gnosticism, you know, I think. But when we look at Valentinus, and we look at Basilides is just completely wacky that to think that he's considered, or he's self-professed Christian. But then Martian, I mean, again, are these Gnostics? Are they Christians? The Gospel of Thomas, you know, I mean, now I believe the debate now with the Gospel of Thomas is that it's not really a Gnostic text. But I do like what David Brackey says, and he says that it is Gnostic, but it's in its own alternative format. It presents an alternative, you know, it just doesn't, you know, there's no Gnostic terminology, but the format, the way, and the ideas are very much Gnostic. And of course, you know, why was the Gospel of Thomas not included in the canon? Well, I don't know the reasons, but I mean, obviously, it would have made perfect sense to include it. Okay, it does say in one of the logias, it says something about Christ being the Son of Man and just being a man, which you could interpret as being kind of, you know, pseudo-Docetist, and you know, on the lines of, on the fringes of heresy. But then on the other hand, in I think it's Logia 55, I think it is, it talks about taking up your own cross. So, you know, and you can understand that as you wish. I think, you know, the reader can take from that what they will. So this is a text that can be, I think, perfectly read and accepted by mainstream Christians, as well as by Gnostics, or by any person with a spiritual interest, you know, like one of the great sacred spiritual texts. You know, I think it transcends all religious, shall we say, barriers. But at the same time, it could perfectly have been, you know, the fifth gospel in the, you know, well, following the, you know, the synoptic ones in the New Testament. It would have been great, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It would have made a big difference.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, no, well said. I mean, as I forgot who said it, a scholar said, yeah, the debate on Thomas is going to go on probably after you and I are gone, Darren, or we're punished in our next manifestation in another Love and Rocket song. But the truth is that the Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas doesn't die for our sins or anything. He's bringing secret information. Is the same Jesus as the Sethians or the Valentinians. So there is something very different from Thomas that's closer to the Gnostic as far as Jesus. They're both saying the world's an illusion, wake up, here is the secret information that I am imparting, whether it's Jesus, Hermes, you know, those ancient mystery teachers that we don't even know if they're real, right? Like Hermes.
That's right. Yes, these composite figures are made up of different gods and teachers and masters. Yeah. But of course, no. Thomas is of course more of a in the Gospel of Thomas. Christ is more of a teacher, of a sort of spiritual teacher, of a master, of a communicator of secret knowledge, and it definitely has a very different. I mean, the whole. You know,
he's also our higher self. He could just be Thomas's daemon, right? Judas.
That's
Thomas.
right. That's right. Yeah.
We don't know, but he could be just Thomas Thomas did some drugs and is like, dude, my higher self speaking to me, dude.
but the point I try to make is that it definitely has something very particular and Gnostic about it, no doubt. But it could easily be read by a mainstream Christian, I think, without that mainstream Christian having to feel that this is, you know, heretic or non-accepted or whatever. Whereas, you know, for example, you know, The Origin of the World, give that to a mainstream Christian and they'll just jump out the window. But the Gospel of Thomas, I think, has that. It transcends. It definitely, I mean, is a Gnostic text from my perspective, my humble perspective. And I think that, but you know, I agree with what you said, and I definitely agree with what David Brackey says. It's a Gnostic text in its own, a very particular sui generis form of Gnosticism. But it could be, it could be read by, you know, but it transcends the labels. If you see what I mean, I think it's a wonderful, beautiful text. Reminds me of you know, these Japanese koans, these you know, from the Rinzai tradition, these you know, riddles that are trying to awaken you and take you away from the limits of language, which is again going back to Baudrillard and the postmodernists. It's language, the way we relate to reality through language, but language is at the same time a prison for us. You know, we you know, it's like this old famous painting, no, that this is not a pipe. You know, there's a painting of a pipe. Yeah, you know, but I mean, it isn't a pipe, but it is a pipe at the same time. And then what is a pipe in the end? And that's the problem we've got. I think that reality is such a it's just is it consensual? Is it where do we how can we be sure that we are seeing that our language and the way that we relate to the world is providing us with a real perspective of reality? You know, it sounds a bit long-winded and silly, but you know, and I think, well, again, I mean, the power of language, I mean, a bit slightly unrelated to this, but William Burroughs, he said language is a virus. And of course it's you know, and it mutates, and of course all these words and symbols that we use, they mutate, and eventually they lose complete relation to the original subject. And in a way, it's I suppose it's how far we've you know, sort of got ourselves lost from the true God, from the higher God, from the God above God, as you always say in your program.
Well, that was Paul Tillich. It was an Orthodox theologian who came up with that cool concept, which I borrow. But no, that's really well said, and you're right. I mean, there was a reason, as some have said, scholars said, that Jung loved the Gnostics and he didn't really care for the Neoplatonists because he thought the Gnostics were just had this repository of rich symbols and ideas that he could use that later became alchemy. And his language, you're right, 100%, Darren. I mean, like Justin Sledge has said, the Gnostics were masters at language and came from this Hebrew tradition where words have different meanings and levels, and you use different puns. As he said, the Valentinians were using Hebrew and Aramaic puns in a time when both languages were dying. I mean, Philo of Alexandria didn't know Hebrew, but the Sethians and the Valentinians are using it. And like you said, they're using it in a way where you can read it many ways. It's kind of be confusing. They're playing a joke on you because it's parody, you know, in many ways. And that's, I think, part of the genius of the Gnostics, which again, people love, like Sledge and Jung and all that, was their way of playing with these symbols that, as you said, remain alive as reality decays. And the simulation is part of it. One guy, one thinker said, simulation theory might be the only time in history where theists and atheists can finally agree on something and work together because it's a simulation. And that I agree with 100%. Or who did that? David Pierce. I have the quote here. The simulation argument is perhaps the first interesting argument for the existence of a creator in 2,000 years. And he's right. So again, this goes right back to the Gnostics and their ideas of a simulation.
It's just incredible how even if you go back to the 40s, slightly changing topic, but we go back to the 40s with you know, or slightly before that with Hans Jonas, and he's offering us really an Gnosticism that's really an existential perspective on Gnosticism, you know, precisely focusing really on the problems of this hostile world, of this fake reality, of this dark world where we have to seek for this light. And as I say, I mean, I keep repeating myself, but it never ceases to surprise me how Gnosticism can merge, adapt, infiltrate, kidnap all these different fields of inquiry, and you know, it's incredible that having been prescribed, and you know, the original Gnostic groups from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century have been disappeared, and if we consider the Cathars to be Gnostic, which I think they probably were, but again, I'm just a layman. We're looking at well, they were exterminated by the last one of these you know, European crusades. It's incredible that today in 2024 we're still talking and debating the work of the Gnostics. It really is. It's incredible. There's obviously something of great value there.
Oh yeah, you should see the right. The right has either appropriated the idea of the archons and all that, or they're once again trying to blame all the world's problems on the Gnostics. So it's wonderful. I love it. And yeah, going back to the Gospel of Thomas, thinking you're right. Yeah, Thomas, unlike on the Origin of the World or Secret Book of John, it's got the Gnosticism without the Lovecraft monsters and the existentialist dread of Hans Jonas. But I want that. You know, I want to be like Thomas says, first you will be disturbed, then you'll be amazed. I want to be challenged. But some people, okay, enjoy these nice little sayings, and they're very Eastern and very meditative. Yeah, have some fun. If you're not ready to see the truth that this is a world of horror, that's fine. But again, that's the whole point. It's like, you know, I can love the world and hate it at the same time, just as you, Darren, can have solar and lunar powers. There's nothing wrong with embracing the horror, as because that way you embrace the holiness as well.
I think that Monday to Friday we have to do our best to embrace, you know, the joy and the happiness, or we'll just fall apart, because we have to, you know, work on top of it. And then, you know, we can
jobs. Can we flip that?
I think we can enjoy the not enjoy, because that's obviously the wrong word, but we can delve in the darkness and understand the darkness in our own time. I mean, what I'm trying to say with this is that I think we do need, or most of us, I think, as humans, and this is why religions, mainstream religions, are successful, I think, to a degree, is you know, something that lifts us up and that keeps us going and that gives us a bit of hope, even if it's false hope. But of course, that's the other thing about Gnosticism. That, you know, I remember there was an interview you did with Tobias Churden not very long ago, and Tobias Churden was saying, you know, that, you know, you can't be living in a you know, you can't be following an ideology where the whole world, with this, you know, extreme dualism, where the whole material world is just horrible and wrong and a delusion, because then you think about, well, you know, we've got, what about our children and our cat and our, you know, whatever, you know, there is beauty in this world, and of course there is beauty, and this is, you know, the title of my book, The Divine Spark. Mm-hmm. The divine spark that's been left behind by Sophia in the, you know, in the creation myth, or the sorry, the Gnostic myth, sorry. So, and I do think that by accepting, by following an ideology or a philosophy or a school of thought like Gnosticism, where you learn to accept that there is this incredible darkness, that this world has been built on blood and pain, that you know, it's, you know, we've become totally accustomed to it, you know, but it is a world of horror. And of course, how could this have been created by a perfect, loving God? And I think this is one of the other great successes of Gnosticism, is the way that it resolves the problem of evil, of theodicy. Because of course, if this is a world that's been created by a false God, then of course, you know, things make sense. But still, yet that false God still has something in him from, you know, the real God above, through all these the different change of emanations. And but even in mainstream Christianity, there's, you know, well, at least in Catholicism, it's always said that Satan is the prince of this earth. So in a way, I mean, you know, it's all there, really. I mean, and I think once we interiorize that, and you know, I think going back to the origin of the world, I mean, that's a sobering read. That's an incredible text. You know, a red pill moment. You eat the apple, and then you suddenly see your creators as monsters. I mean, that is just, you know, it really does. Its impact. It does have an impact, doesn't it? So yeah, definitely. I mean, I think. So I do think that there's a way that we can see Gnosticism as something dreadful and dark, and that perhaps people will say, well, you know what, I'd rather follow, I don't know, Buddhism or become a Sufi or whatever, and just you know, try and look for the positive side of things. But of course, that's not what we know our human condition to be. And Gnosticism accepts fully both. I mean, of course, Buddhism does as well, with you know, the Four Noble Truths, and suffering is the first one.
Yeah.
You know, and perhaps that's one of the I think commonalities that it might have with Gnosticism. That but Gnosticism goes so far beyond, in that this is a world, not only a delusion. It's just it's a world created by, you know, even the archons have created the parts of our body. You know, so it's quite harsh and quite dark, but at the same time, there's a seed of hope at the end of it, which is, of course, what maybe Jung would call individuation, what more standard philosophers would call self-realization, but what you know, Christian mystics would call theosis, or they would call the unitive stage of mysticism, or Satori, or Nirvana, or, you know, which is this reaching with God, and as you mentioned before, with the higher self, with the transcendence, whatever we want to call it. And I think that's the positive message of Gnosticism, really, is there. I mean, it's so it's easy to see it as something dark, but then on the other hand, it can easily be flipped, and you can see the good in it. And I think the Gospel of Thomas, of course, as you said, it's got this Eastern, you know, philosophy, straight religion feel to it. But as you also say, it's you know, you've got Christ that's, you know, compelling you to attain this hidden knowledge, and that's always that's always also you know, has an impact, has a something. It's this language of riddles, where they try and take you away from the discursive language, where you're thinking, you know, you're left, well, thinking is not really you know, you're left feeling or seeing images, or experiencing thoughts, rather than having thoughts or thinking thoughts, I think.
Yeah, I want you to hold on to that, because when we get to a part of your book I want to discuss. But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, there was a part. Every part of your body there's an archon in charge. There's even in the secret book of John an archon for your left and your right butt cheek. Not one archon for your ass, two archons for your ass. So that's how much care the damn you're just putting into our humanity. And I think the proof is in the pudding, Darren. You know, yes, the Gnostic works are intense throughout history, but what did people say about the Cathars, the Manichaeans, the Valentinians? That they were very happy people, they were well-rounded, they were at peace, they were kind, they were giving. Yeah, they may be talking about, you know, the god of this world, and the, you know, the Satan rules the entire world, but they were very, again, they were very great people. People wanted to be around them, right?
Well, this is right. Yeah, but the Cathars, I mean, in particular, I mean, what, you know, they seem to be some sort of idyllic medieval commune in a way, and they had perfect ecumenical relations with all the mainstream Christians they lived with. Well, many of them were relatives, and yeah, absolutely, they do seem very well balanced and happy individuals. Yeah, definitely. And it's just that terrible. But it's those two examples. I mean, it's the brute dogma that destroys them both. You know, Manny gets flayed. I believe he's flayed to death, and the poor Cathars get burnt. And you know, and I was just remembering just a moment ago that you were talking about the Rosicrucians, and this apocryphal story about Christian Rosenkreuz being the descendant of Cathars. Is that right? Or have you
Really?
heard about that?
No, I don't.
I've read about that somewhere, but don't ask me
Oh,
where. Unfortunately,
well,
it's
somebody in the
sometimes I
chat,
just,
if you let us know if you
yeah,
know that in the chat, or you want to Google it real quick. But could be,
yeah.
could be. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of legendary, and who knows. But yeah, Graham, do you have a question or a comment on this discussion we're having?
Oh no, I find it fascinating, and I think part of the issue with Gnosticism and why it lost out to Orthodox Christianity is, Gnosticism. You accept the world light and dark. It's like Jung's for a tree's branches to go to heaven, the roots have to go to hell, and that's a whole lot less profitable than Orthodox Christianity. And Paul built such a strong, franchising method for it that just Gnosticism with it's just less profitable. I would, that's pretty much my observation so far. Tag.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, who wants to go inward and do the hard work? That's where you get down and dirty, when you go down into the underworld and have to face the dragon, and the dragon is just you. So it's easier just to show up on Sunday and be done with it, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Although I think that I mean, again, it's the parallelisms between Christian, let's say, the Christian mystics, and I think within the Catholic Church, and possibly the Orthodox Church, and all other old apostolic denominations. I think that this in mysticism, where Gnosticism still prevails and lives within these established religions, and perhaps it came from as far back as the Essenes, or the who were the early ascetic hermits, weren't they? But I do think that that there is within the even within the mainstream church, there is still, but you have to dig deep, and of course you have to find your own way. But I do think there is still there Gnostic ideals and practices, even. I mean, I've always thought that the Catholic Church, with all its different sacraments and its folk magic, and it's really the only mainstream magic club left, or society left, in a way. And of course it's interesting because these Gnostics, they did practice, or some of them did, the Eucharist. There's this intriguing sacrament of the bridal chamber, which has sort of sounds very sort of ancient Jewish to me, the little I know about it. And of course there's all these, you've got Clement, you've got Origen, you've got St. Paul. I mean, what I don't know what your take is on Elaine Page's book on St. Paul, but obviously you quote a lot. I think, is it from his letter to Ephesians or something? I'm not sure. The one where he talks about powers, dominations, and that's a very Gnostic. That's very Gnostic sounding, and it's not only because whenever I hear that, or whenever I read that, it's always in your voice. I hear your voice saying it. You've used that quite a lot in your yes. But it does sound so Gnostic, and he does talk also in Corinthians, I think it is. I can't remember now which passage exactly, but he talks about hidden wisdom. So there is. I really think that Christianity is, and I mean that's my particular interest in my sort of say niche interest in Gnosticism, is how intertwined it is with Christianity. But of course, it goes beyond the boundaries of any one religion, or and it's so much more. But I find it interesting how they both one of them, I don't know who was which one, but they bastardized each other, didn't they? And they've lived alongside, and there's a lot of I mean, when you look at Clement and Origen, I think it's Origen who believed in all these different levels of spiritual attainment, and these different the worlds preceding this one and worlds that will come after. and loads of Gnostic ideas. And of course, he refuted the Gnostics, as did his master Clement. But then, on the other hand, there's Gnostic stuff in their works, and you know, in the same.
Even more Gnostic than the Gnostics.
That's right.
Stuff is
That's
wild.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, they were excommunicated as well. I mean, or Origen was, or was it Clement? I can't remember now. But they were excommunicated at some point. One of them was saying that even Satan would be saved in the restoration of intellectual souls, and of course it does all sound very much like the emanations. And I mean, even when you read, you know, the Nicene Creed, when it talks about you know, begotten, not made, of consubstantial, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
that really sounds like emanation language.
It is.
It does. It does. It really does sound like emanation language. I mean, and I mean the emanation theory or ideas. I find it as well fascinating. Fascinating because it's a very ingenious way of describing something that can't be described, or that can, you know, it's, you know, how do these energies, these hidden energies, or this divine spark can travel from one higher being to a lesser being, you know, and these two these two realms of existence. It really is fascinating, Gnosticism. It really is, and I think that that the fact that it's got I was talking about how it's intertwined with Christianity, and I think that is true. Although of course the church despises Gnosticism, always has, sees it something very dangerous. And of course, all these ancient, all these early Christians were, and again, I go back to Lane Pages. I think they were all trying to, they all had their ideas and their convictions, many of them with a very strong Gnostic flavor. But I think that they then had to sacrifice these in looking for this, you know, consistent, coherent one church that they were, that was their ambition. But it's fantastic. You've got Middle Platonism in Gnosticism. In this, you've got Jewish mysticism. There's Hellenic philosophy, and as I said, nowadays we've got. I think there's a connection with well, obviously, pretty obviously, with the theory of simulation, with transhumanism, with all sorts of things. It's a never-ending field. I mean, I think you'll be doing this program in 100 years if you buy your immortality.
Yeah. If I turn myself into a robot or something like that.
Yeah. If you download yourself to a cloud, then you'll still be doing this.
Yeah. Or like Futurama.
You won't run out. You won't run out of topics. You won't run out of topics. I think that's
No. As long as the world keeps doing what the world's gonna do, I'll find stuff. So, but yeah, I would say for Paul, obviously the Gnostics were gaga over him. And then when you read, I don't know if you read the work of a Greek Orthodox scholar, David Bentley Hart, and he's done work on Paul, and he says we keep reading Paul through Sunday school glasses, but when you read them in the Greek, when you see the worldview, yes, Paul is just describing a Gnostic world. These angels have taken over the world, these powers and principalities, these archons, they're mating with women, they're destroying humanity, and only through this knowledge of this cosmic being called Christ that the Jews and the Gentiles have forgotten or don't know about, will we awake and overthrow the God of this world. So it was right there. I mean, and Paul was probably more common with early Christians and Jews at that time than people are admitting. I think that was very much the Enochian Gnostic worldview. I think was pretty widespread in the first century, but they had to hide that. There was a few heretics getting in trouble, and Paul was always Orthodox or whatever.
But this is the issues. Of course, it's the being able to read these texts in the original language, which of course I can't do. You know, and that's, I think, just by writing this book, where some of these words haven't come up, and I've had to translate them. Well, no, I haven't translated them. I've had to look for translations, just, you know, single words, and you realize how so many so many of these words are, etymologically, their meaning is so, the root of their meaning is so different. Like liturgy comes from liturgia, which I'm not pronouncing it properly from the Greek, but that means service to the state, which is quite interesting, and so many other words that are used in Christian text, and of course in some of these ancient Gnostic texts, and of course all these constant translations from Coptic to Greek, and then it's I think we lose out a lot by not being able to read them in the original language. But of course, it's that's not an easy feat, is it? To suddenly go and learn ancient Greek and Aramaic and Copt. But yeah, definitely. And I think if we read many of these ancient texts in their original language, we would be more than surprised.
And we also have to deprogram ourselves too, because we were raised in a certain way. Society says so. We're seeing how we were taught to see these people or these texts, not what they were, what the cultural context was. And once you do that, again, you see Paul completely different. You see the Gospel of Mark different. You see what was going on, how they saw things.
Absolutely.
But Darren,
absolutely.
I wanted to show part of your book and get your thoughts on it and the audience's thoughts. This is let me read it for you, because again, your book always gives all these pointers so people can understand about what Gnosticism is. So I'm going to pull it up here and read it. Maybe this will be more space. This is from your book, and you're talking about, again, another groundbreaking book, which is Tobias Churton's book, The Gnostics from Ancient Persian to Modern Times. And you summarize, for the Gnostics, salvation is achieved through secret knowledge consisting in understanding the Gnostic myth of the fall and freeing oneself from the material world to reach the true God, who then sends the Logos, Jesus, to free us. But this Jesus is not the same Jesus of the official church, as we have previously pointed out. The cosmos and the human body are a source of doubt and skepticism. The cosmos and creation are the products and emanations of the aeons. And I like how in your book you do say that aeons are both a time, a place, and a consciousness. People always miss that one, but that is so important to know. 3,
Yep.
The Gnostics use complex rituals and magical or theurgical ceremony, possibly influenced by the ancient mysteries in which women could fully participate. That's important. 4, humanity is divided into pneumatikoi, or spiritual beings who have received gnosis, psychikoi, who are believers in gnosis, but must work on their morality to reach gnosis, or as Robert Price calls them, the pew potatoes. And then the hyliko, who only know the world of matter. That's, Conan the Barbarian and those characters. So I think that's, and here, of course, you're right. Yeah, the aeons are celestial beings who are also units of space and time. They are invisible, spiritual, eternal entities that dwell in plenitude. I think that's important because that's part of the koan. That is so hard to, but the Mandeans believe that today. It's easy, but for us, well, there is a secret on the other side if you believe that. So that's what I think it's good, and I like how you add about the mysteries, because even a lot of these books, like again we're talking about, that come out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they don't really talk about how important altered states of mind are and how the experience is far more. Even Jung said experiencing the symbol is more important than deciphering it. Don't sit there and go, well, this means that the elite are taking over the country. No. Experience it. That's what opens your mind. And the Gnostics were about, and you quote David Brackey, they were about these astral flights. They were shamanistic. They were the shamanistic side of any religion. And that's finally, it's happening. And the other one, of course, that I say is that more and more Gnosticism was it comes from the ancient mysteries. It did not sprout out of Christianity. It's older. So again, I'm glad your book addresses this.
I mean, I think that all mysticism points out to a reality beyond words, and I think that's you've mentioned Jung, you've mentioned all these different authors and groups. It's funny you mentioned the Mandaeans, because I wanted to write about the Mandaeans, because obviously being the only group in existence today, but I just thought that would be a disservice. It would be very difficult to. I mean, ideally, it would have been great to find the Mandaean and interview him for the book. Perhaps next time. I think that's fascinating. I mean, they still exist today, and practice their rituals, which takes me to the other point. I mean, it'll be one of the things about Gnosticism is that it's very difficult to practice, in a sense. It hasn't become. I mean, I know in the States you have Stephen Hoeller, and you've got loads and loads of Gnostic groups and churches and so on. Closest thing we've got here in the UK, I believe, is the French Gnostic churches, but it's not something that's easy to come across. And then of course, that's taken me to the thought that Gnosticism it demands us to find our own practice.
Exactly.
And I think that it is a solitary practice in a way. And I do think that again, I mean, we look at Evagrius Ponticus, this Christian hermit that was a practitioner of hesychasm, and he has some, he was a follower of Origen, and he has quite a lot of Gnostic ideas. And I think I'm right in saying that the Dead Sea Scrolls and also the Nag Hammadi codices were most probably left in those places, hidden and concealed by Christian monks. So I find it very interesting, and I think hesychasm or hesychia or forms of meditation, and again altered states of consciousness, which of course we can look at Sir Philip K. Dick and his work, and it's an essential part of Gnosticism, because it's the experience, and it's difficult to write about experiences and breaking down an experience. I mean, it's like this French occultist André Natab said, to name a thing is to destroy it. And that's the thing, isn't it? So it's I like very much what April de Connick says. She says she refers to Gnosticism as a metaphysical orientation, I think, or inclination.
Correct.
And I find that fascinating. I think that's a very, very good definition. And that's what I hold on to when I try to explain to somebody what Gnosticism is. When they ask me, "Oh, what's this about? What's Gnosticism?" And I try to explain, well, it's not a religion, it's not a philosophy, it's not science, it's not an ancient mystery religion, but yet, in a way, it's all of these things at the same time, which is its strength.
Yeah, it's like I tell people, it's like shamanism. There's no church of shamanism. It's a spiritual modality that appears across all civilizations and time. And like you said, when you start studying shamanism, you're like, God damn, I don't want to be the shaman, because the shaman was the spiritual troubleshooter, but he was the shrink of the tribe. He was the medicine man. He was the guy that he was officiating weddings. He was writing philosophy and history for so he was all over the map. But his overall thing was to make sure that the tribe was healthy spiritually, physically, and mythologically, that it had a purpose, because again, the tribe would be looking up at the sky and like, oh my God, we're so screwed. Look at this giant universe. And the shaman's like, no, we got these myths, and I'm going to go to the spiritual world, and we all have a purpose. And the tribe would be like, oh God, yeah. Something like that. So.
I like that. Yes, absolutely. I really like that.
Yeah, that's why I still go. I think Gnosticism is shamanism, but they've added the trickster part, if you know what I mean. It's they accentuated the dangerous. But I mean, shamans always knew that if you go into the spirit world, some spirit might just take your head off or devour your
You're a
soul. It's just
vessel.
it's
At the
part
end
of
of
the
it, you're
job.
a vessel. Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Part of the job
Gnostics just
description.
said, yeah, the Gnostics said, hey, these spirits are even bigger than you thought. They're massive. And that's what. But what do you think? You because of your book, I went and watched Tobias Churton's documentary, The Gnostics, and as we were talking, for you in the audience, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's for free. And this was in 1987, and it is still so timely and spot on. And Tobias, I think God bless him for all the contributions that are just invaluable. But he was able to interview, Elaine Pagels, Gilles Gispel, Hans Jonas, the great, Heidegger student and the great existentialist Gnostic philosopher. He interviewed or Gilles Gispel did, the guy who
Mohammed
found the Nag
al-Saman.
Hammadi. Yes,
Yeah.
he was still alive in those. He was in his 70s, and he related. So it's just a great. Oh, it's such a great. I love how Jesus in that documentary looks less like Barry Gibb. He looks like Roger Daltrey. Have you noticed the blonde
He
hair?
does indeed, yes.
He's like the Gospel of Thomas, but
Tommy,
it's such an
Gospel of Tommy.
amazing. Yeah, Tommy, can you hear me?
Yes,
But
it's a brilliant show. I mean, it's just so groundbreaking. 1986, 1987, it was shot. And it's just such a shame you can't purchase that anywhere, I believe. And we're just relying on this generous person that's posted it on YouTube. But it's
the
I mean,
BBC
imagine in
doesn't have it online.
1986.
BBC
Pardon?
doesn't have it online. This
Not
was
to my
done by the
knowledge.
BBC. Oh wow.
No, I think it's Channel 4. I think it was Channel 4
Okay.
production.
Right.
But no, I mean, I've looked everywhere. You can't find it anywhere. I mean, as far as I'm aware, and it's a brilliant, groundbreaking program. I mean, in 1986, Tobias Sheridan must have been a very young man in those days, and he just came up with that. And as you say, Gilles Gispel, Elaine Pagels, Hans Jonas, it's
Robinson is in
brilliant.
it too. Yeah,
Pardon?
Robinson is like Robinson.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
the man who brought together the Nag Hammadi, James Robinson. So many.
It is an absolute, and for me that was a discovery when I first watched that, and I watch it regularly. I mean, it really is a brilliant piece of work, and yeah, it's just incredible what it must have been like to write about the Gnostics, and well, I believe the TV series was on the back of a book he'd written on the Gnostics.
Mhm.
So he was a pioneer, Tobias Sheridan, most definitely a pioneer. I can't see that there would have been much interest in the Gnostics back all that time ago.
Yeah, and again, I go back to how it's changed, because despite being a wonderful documentary, it still goes with this sort of what I call this. We forget that the Da Vinci Code, the book, how impactful it was into culture in the 90s and early aughts. I mean, it is one of the top 5 best-selling books of all time. It's up there with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. That's how important it was, and it really brought not just Gnosticism, but Knights Templar, medieval literature. It brought this interest in Mary Magdalene, but there was this sort of churchy concept of Gnosticism that you see in the documentary, that it came from Christianity, and the Gnostics were just doing sacramental things, and they were nicer to women. And I think that misses the boat, because again, it's forgetting that it is experiential first and foremost. You have to have an experience, and the Gnostics were doing many things to have an experience, depending on where they were. And again, the Egypt thing kind of gets overlooked, even though part of the movie is Gispel with Muhammad in the Nag Hammadi area. It shows the caverns and everything. It's like, well, you think, as Tobias has said in his last book, the Nag Hammadi library appeared in this industrial place of alchemy, where all the alchemical labs were in the ancient times. So it's like, well, what more evidence do you need? I know everybody's like, the brave Christian monks. Is like, no, this is Egyptian magic and gnosis of the highest order. And those are the two things I think. I'm glad now it's going that way. You know, Dylan Burns, David Litwa, the experience and how Egyptian it was, instead of this churchy Gnostic Dan Brown, Mary Magdalene Gnosticism. And the right has
Yeah,
blown it too, because the right focuses so much on the archons, because Corey Good and David Icke and John Lamb Lash. So it's Gnosticism is all like archons and aliens, and there's a part for it, but it's not the most important. You know, the transcendence is very important too. What do you think, Darren?
oh, definitely. I mean, I think that yes, there's definitely this tame and domesticated version of Gnosticism that we've seen, and this is what I was telling you before about looking for some sort of temple or church where one could practice. You know, I suppose every person is different. Some of us, you know, we probably like some sort of practice or group practice. But I think that, as you say, perhaps misses the point. And I think that a Masonic meeting is probably a very Gnostic, a very good way of practicing, you know, of putting Gnosticism or Gnostic ideas in practice, because there are lots of similarities with Freemasonry, in spite of the fact that there's no direct connection or of any sort. But definitely Freemasonry has been part of the Western mystery tradition, drinks from these Gnostic sources, because I think Gnosticism, as you rightly say, is very Egyptian. This is why Basilides, I mean, I find that the Basilides saying that he was Christian, and that's so Egyptian, his stake, the whole mythology, all the mythos he works with. So I think it's fantastic. But Gnosticism is really the foundation of the whole occult tradition, of the whole theurgy and magic and the whole of Western esotericism. I think owes its existence, in some degree, to Gnosticism, without a shadow of a doubt. And going back to Gilles Gispel, I mean, I think his take on Gnosticism was not that it was a kind of set of Christianity, like many people or some academics think, but rather a Jewish set, I believe. He believes that it's a really a kind of Jewish mystical movement, or so everybody's got different takes. But of course, today in 2024, Gnosticism is so much more than all of that. It's every one thing of those that we've discussed, and more than that, and everything at the same time. Because it's, as I say, I keep going on about this, but it feeds so nicely into such a wide array of human disciplines that it's just it's here to stay. I mean, the fact that we are talking about it today it seems crazy. I mean, it's and yeah, it's I mean, as I say, my interest in Gnosticism and how it's intertwined with Christianity doesn't take away from the fact that I agree with what you're saying, that of course there's it's so much more than that. It transcends any religious barrier, and it's about an experience, and possibly I always revert back to the Essenes and think about the Essenes and how they these harsh ascetic practices that later went on to different mainstream religions. And I think that might have taken them to different states of altered consciousness that would have made them prone. And again, it's the whole worldview, isn't it? It's the whole worldview, and it's the way that things are seen today. People go on Sunday to mass, and that's it. There you go. And after they have a sandwich and a coffee in the hall. Yes, I mean it's not exactly reaching the pleroma, is it? But it is a journey, isn't it? It's a journey that's an ongoing journey, and it's yeah, it's very interesting. But as I say, I go back to the beginning of the program when we were talking about of the show, when we were talking about Saint Augustine and the dedication. That was, I think, one of my first, you know, shall we say, being awareness of Gnosticism was when I read the Confessions, and I then read about Saint Augustine. But I also remember another book many years ago when I was in high school back in Spain, and I think it was by a philosopher called Luis Racionero. He was kind of a counterculture underground philosopher, but a very sort of, you know, an academic and a scholar with a tenure in, I think, in a university in Barcelona. And he wrote about something about the apple eaters, and how, you know, again, going back to the origin of the world, it was that sort of thing. You know, the serpent has been in, you know, a revealer of gnosis, and the apple has been not the forbidden fruit, not something that would go against the real God, but against Yaldabaoth, against the you know, the false god of this false world. And ever since, it's been fascinating me, because, you know, it turns around the whole, you know, I was brought up as a Catholic, so it really turns it all around. It challenges the New Testament, it challenges the resurrection and many other dogmas of faith, but at the same time, it does kind of, it's difficult to say, but it does refute them. But then on the other hand, it doesn't seem to go against the essence of it all. No. You know, it's and you know, and then of course it's and it equates, it makes a clear division with the Old Testament, and of course the old the god, the fire and brimstone god of the Old Testament is equated to the demiurge or Yaldabaoth. And but then you can, you know, if some days you might feel like a bit of a rationalist Gnostic, so you might want to read some, you know, Plato or Plotinus, who are not Gnostic, but the similarities are, you know, huge, I think, with many of the Gnostic ideas. But of course, the truth is in the texts. The truth is in all the texts, and you've got the Secret Book of John, and then you've got the Gospel of the Egyptians, and the Gospel of Truth, and this beautiful diversity, where you can actually, you know, some texts are very lay out the Gnostic myth very clearly, and you can just, it's almost like reading a novel in a way, or a, you know, or a play with characters. And others have got this poetic tension and drama to them, and epic feeling. I mean, even reading some of these texts is can, you know, this come with a warning. They can, you know, they produce some altered state of consciousness.
Oh yeah, I agree. Sometimes the text is the secret. That's what the Hermetic said. The text is supposed to give you that altered state of mind, and we've all done it. I mean, you and I, and you read a book, maybe it's fiction, maybe it's not fiction, and we're like, your mind changes. You close the book, and you're like, reality is different. I am forever changed by this book. I'll never be the same. So
yes,
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, and somebody said, if you're looking for a practice, he's right. Santo Daime can be a modern Gnostic practice. I think there might be a church in London, but I have loved Santo Daime with the ayahuasca, and it's extremely Gnostic. Christian mysticism at its best, Sophia led. The other one too, I would say too, is my advice for people is go to Catholic Mass. Go to pre-Vatican II Catholic Mass. Do what the Valentinians do. I love going to Mass. Make it your own. You know,
well,
make
that's
sure
exactly.
You swallow a lot of incense, kneel and hurt your. And at the end, when you take the body of Christ, it's not your sins, as you are becoming the Logos. You are connecting with your higher self.
Yes.
You're individuated, yes. and you make it alchemical. Even Jung said the Catholic Mass is one of the last few ceremonies where somebody can have an inner experience. So make it your own. Okay, go to a mosque. Go to
you're invoking God on a Sunday. I mean, the problem is the domestication of it all, you know, and Jesus becomes Deepak Chopra and all that kind of stuff. But you know, absolutely. If you have to make it your own, which again is another one of your famous phrases, you know, live your own gospel. And that's exactly it. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that's exactly what I was getting at before, which I think that in the Catholic Mass, you can, if you, you just have to choose your own particular perspective, your particular mode, and how you approach it. Definitely. But going back to this, was it Santo Daime? You think there will be something in London?
I think there is a church. I'm not sure. Danny
I'll definitely look
Nemo.
it
I
up.
don't know yeah, Danny Nemo, who's been a guest, and he lives in London, but I think he goes to Holland. Portugal has one, I think now, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'll look it up and I'll let you know. My uncle's the head of the church in Lisboa, so he knows. So
All
I
right.
think there's
Yeah.
one
Well,
in the United States, Portland and Austin. So I don't have one here, unfortunately. London has
yeah.
everything. What are you talking about?
No, I don't think so.
What about the psychedelics? How's London? How's England doing with that? Are they allowing
Psychedelics?
mushroom therapy and all that, or is it?
No, mushrooms are not. They used to sell them in Camden Town 20 years ago, and you could just buy them there. And they were, you know, very specific, very, you know. But no, I think things are getting a bit tighter here. I don't think it's. We're not really living in psychedelic times here in the UK, unfortunately, with all the politics and all the stuff that's going on.
Really?
But
United States
yeah,
is
but I
going
think what's happening in the States. In the States, you've got some of your some states now have got some open psychedelic shops where people can buy mushrooms and DMT and all that sort of stuff. Is that right?
yeah,
Legal.
and or at the very least, even somewhere like Illinois, cannabis is completely legal, recreational. But now you can do. They have ketamine labs. They're starting to open mushroom labs. As long as you do it with a therapist, which I agree with, those are becoming ubiquitous slowly in the United States.
Okay, so I see. So you have to sign up with a therapist and then.
Yeah, some
Right.
states it's no, I think like Oregon and others is completely heroin. There's no laws.
Wow, that's
But
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting development and things.
it's a
So
double-edged sword.
I've been listening to some of the old lectures by Terence McKenna lately. So yeah, funny that you mentioned this. Yes, it's yeah, interesting subject. I think eventually these things will well, I suppose they go. It goes in. You know, changes a lot, doesn't it? As I said, 20 years ago, you could go to Camden Town and there'll be stalls there selling all sorts of mushrooms, but there'll be no therapy, no nothing. So you know, I suppose, yeah, it's people with maybe with existing conditions or psychological issues could have been put themselves in danger. So yeah, I think it's a good idea that there's always a therapist.
Well, that's one of my rules that I keep telling people: don't go on it on your own. I don't care what it is, entheogen, even spiritual practice, even meditation. And again, the texts always have Jesus or Hermes or Mary Magdalene. Somebody has to lead you, because the most rewarding place is inside your soul or across the universe, but it's also the most dangerous place in the world. You can get lost. So you need a shaman or somebody to take you inward, how much entheogens to use, what kind of prayers, and you don't do it. Even the Hezekiah, the Jesus prayer, they always say never do this on your own or it will screw you up. And always do it with a Greek Orthodox priest. And I'm like, I'll do it myself. And I was doing it very loyally, and it really screwed me up. It gave me a nervous breakdown.
Well, I've done it. I've practiced that for, but maybe I haven't practiced it properly. I tend to practice. I don't know if you've heard about the World Community for Christian Meditation, which was founded by a Benedictine monk who went to India and meditated with the Hindu sadhus and learned meditation techniques. And then, of course, he combined it with the Benedictine rule of silence, where there was some sort of a tradition of contemplative meditation and hesychia and so on and so forth. And I tend to practice that. But of course, there's many groups in London, well, throughout the world, where you can go and practice. And you know, that's a very interesting thing, because there's a Benedictine abbey near where I live, and I go there, or I haven't been there for quite some time,
wow.
but I used to go there every Tuesday. And the Catholic priest that was leading this meditation, everybody sits around the chair or even on cushions on the floor, you know, and there's a candle. There's no mention of it's kept very ecumenical. So not everybody that's there's even a Christian. But anyway, I remember one day before we started meditating, this Catholic priest said, I wish I could remember the exact words, but he was basically talking about the Gnostics for some reason. And he said, you know, the Gnostics are not always wrong. And that's I thought that was quite interesting. A Catholic priest saying that, you know, you know, it was just an observation. But yeah, absolutely. All these practices, yes, they're normally always community led, and it's a good thing to do that. But you know, and hesychasm, they always say, the Orthodox always say, of course, that you have to be very careful because originally the position was, they were called navel gazers, weren't they? Because they would put their head down so that the heart could connect with the mind, and yes, the breathing synchronization. Of course, they call it Christian yoga, don't they? So they say they always recommend a spiritual director or saret. I think the Orthodox. But yeah, I mean these as you, I think I really like what you said about going to a Catholic mass, because I do feel the same thing. I mean, there's a church nearby which is an Assyrian Catholic church, which is not in communion with Rome. They've got no icons. But they've got these beautiful crosses, and they've got these and the masses in Aramaic.
Oh wow!
So you know they've got screens, so you can you know actually understand what they're saying. It's quite a beautiful liturgy and quite uplifting. But as you say, it has to be, one has to go in his own terms, and you know, live your own myth, live your own gospel, live you know, but ultimately you are, you know, the goal is not to be arguing the toss about the Trinity, or if this guy's a heretic, or if the Orthodox are this, or if the Protestants are that. The main goal is God, you know, the true God has been invoked there. You know, you're going on your knees, and if you go to a trad Catholic mass, yeah, be careful not to meet Taylor Marshall there. But
Taylor,
yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah, Dr. Taylor Marshall. Well, he's one of these, you know, fundamentalist Catholic. Got loads of them now. Yeah, ultra dogmatic. You know, one of these, you know, say they're vacantists. You know, that believe that the Holy See is vacant because they're not, the Pope's not good enough, not strict enough. So that's when we've got the problem, isn't it? I suppose when we, you know, that's why it's very important to keep dogmas away. And the beautiful thing about the Gnostic myth is that they're myths. I mean, again, I mean, do you think that the Gnostic masters who wrote those books or those texts believed literally in those ideas? Would they believe literally in that, or was there some, you know, creative, poetic licenses that they were taking, you think?
Probably both. I mean, they obviously were describing experiences that they had, the map of the universe, the map of the mind. But obviously, these would be interpreted by the individual. So that's where that comes in. But I have no doubt they thought, yeah, there was certainly ontological evil or iniquity or stuff. But the details, was there really a, you know, an archon with a hyena head? Probably not. You know, that's an Egyptian trick, right? Your gods have animal heads. That's what these. But so I think it's a little bit of both. So I mean, and the Gnostics are very much what the Neoplatonists and Augustine. You can't describe good, so you go, what is it? Apophatic theology.
Apophatic theology. Yeah. You can't describe what God is, but you know what he isn't. Yeah.
So that's what the Gnostics do in Secret John and other places. Once you get that high up, that's you do your best. But again, it's the experience. They're trying to tell people, my God, I had this experience. Yes, there's archons, but what I saw, I want you to have and see and experience. And here's the map. Here are the rituals. Take it or leave it, man.
Yeah,
they're not going to force you.
And no dogma. Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, well, dogmas quote unquote dogmas maybe, but yes, there doesn't seem to be a faultlessness. There doesn't seem to be they seem to be quite open-minded, and I think that's because of so many different influences that make up the Gnostic ideas and myths, So, and I think there's I wouldn't say tolerant by today's standards, because that would be completely stupid. But they were probably quite ecumenical. But yes, exactly. But ecumenical.
Here's the example, the Valentinians. Valentinians probably went to church, part of the Roman church, but then on the weekends, as they probably went to their lodges and had their experiences and rituals, and then they just went back to society, and like Freemason. You guys, somebody walks in, you don't convert them, or AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Somebody comes in, you don't tell them you need to sober up. You assume this person needs healing. Just like a free, they want, and you slowly you welcome them, and if they leave, they leave. If they stay, they want what you got, right? They want your medicine, Darren.
Not sure what medicine I've got, but
well, healing, isn't that? I mean, Freemasonry. Yes, I think
yes. I think healing is definitely a very, very good word that can be used for these sort of matters. Definitely, I think that's what we all. I mean, that's a very noble ambition, to be healed, noble and and feasible. Definitely, yeah, healing, and that's why people practice different spiritual practices or religions or whatever. Healing, definitely. And you going back to the Rosicrucians. I mean, that was one of their main objectives was healing. And also, on a universal scale. They were the forerunners of the NHS, of the National Health Service.
Oh, really?
In a way. Well, no, not really. But I mean, they have this. I think it's in the Fama Fraternitatis, I think, where they talk about wanting everybody to have access to medical. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, we're getting close towards the end. Anything else, or you want to explain about your book, the structure, what the reader will get? Anything else, Darren?
But no, I think we've explored it. Thank you very much. The book is
What
an
about the
introduction to
end?
Gnosticism.
You've got some interviews at the end. Maybe tell the audience about that beyond your writing.
Oh, my other books.
No. You've got some interviews at the end, some bonuses with Marianne.
Oh yes, of course. Yes. So the book, the book's an introduction to Gnosticism. I talk about the Nag Hammadi codices in particular. I talk about Gnosticism in different contexts: philosophical, scientific, new ideas such as transhumanism and the theory of assimilation. And also at the end of the book, I'm very fortunate to have interviews with Professor Richard Smoley, who's been a guest on this program. I'm sure everybody knows. Miguel Connor, of course. Thank you very much. And also Amanda Marianne Radcliffe, who's a Gnostic bishop in France, who's also been a guest of this program, and Pam Geese, who's an astrologer and a Gnostic bishop in the UK. So I think that's hopefully the last 4 interviews give a flavor of what Gnostic people are, what Gnostics are like. People interested in Gnosticism. They're not sort of demons or anything like that. They're just normal, interesting, interesting and very intelligent people.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I highly recommend. Again, good read. Check it out. Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, and you will definitely be a lot wiser, because again, he talks about Gnosticism, how it manifests today, from Braudillard to the Matrix, simulation, to other ideas. So you get a good context of how relevant it is. And yeah, we are at the end. I don't see any super chats, so no support. I understand these are hard times, but to support, yeah, please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends, even your enemies, even bishops and popes about this show. It really helps keep the lights on of the pleroma of this show. But before we go, Graham, do you have any last comment or question for Darren? Anything you want to mention?
I was going to say, you guys have brought back the old saying that's kind of one of those universal primitive rules of, when it comes to those shamans, don't squeeze the shaman.
Oh, that was quite a dad joke, an occult dad joke, I think. I think I'm actually blushing. Oh my God. Oh well, this is forever. Well, thanks for that. I actually wanted to bring a quote too, because sometimes, again, Darren, looking at your book made me go on this documentary, made me sort of revisit, because sometimes we go on a journey and we forget things. I think the Gospel of Thomas talks about a woman who's Sophia, and she drops things from her sack. And I realized there are some valuable things when I first started their journey. And Gilles Gispel had this quote, and it was really popular maybe 10, 15 years ago, and it sort of fell out, and I can explain why. But I think this is a quote we should bring back, and it's simple. Gnosis is the knowledge of the heart. Have you heard that one? It's in the documentary, actually.
Yes, yes, and of course, the heart or the nose or the the eyes of the heart. Absolutely, the eyes of the heart. It's a
Very
beautiful
true.
quote.
And it's a beautiful, and I think it hits it. I think the problem, and again, there's always online fights because that's human nature. But one side thought that the New Agers were appropriating, like New Agers and occultists have appropriated shadow work. Now it's so popular and they were appropriating this and going, oh, heart and love and light and woo, and a lot of modern Gnostics were getting mad at that. So it just sort of got swept away, and then the churchy Gnostics were adopting it, and that pissed off more of the, I guess, mainstream ones. So I think you need to bring it back, because I think what people forget is, yeah, it's you can take it as a beautiful, inspirational quote, but remember, in Egyptian, and we go back to Egypt, in Egyptian times, our brain was just sort of this place that collected data, but it was our heart that was where the intelligence, the intuition, where the soul was to the Egyptians. So knowledge of the heart is just knowledge of a full, wise mind that can process the world and what's going on. And of course, now I love how, like, you read Rudolf Steiner, and he always said that it's stupid to think that that the heart, as Gordon White says, is just this organ that pumps gravy all day long, when it's more possible that the heart is actually a sensor that really does manage our body, our emotions, and keeps the entire body going. That maybe the Egyptians were closer than what we thought. There is some sort of, dare I say, intelligence, intuition in the heart. So thought I'd bring back that, if you have some thoughts on it.
No, definitely the eyes of the heart, the nose, yes. I mean, again, yes. I think about Nietzsche now, and his idea between the Dionysian view of the human condition, where we, there's instinct. There's a bit of deprivation as well, unfortunately. But then you've got, but then when you look at reason, which would be in your analogy or in relating to that quote, that the seat of the mind, which of course is good. There's balance, there's order, there's harmony, like the Apollo, the god. But then on the other hand, it's dull, and it's very, very dull, and very, very, reason is just an instrument. Reason is just an instrument, but perhaps the feeling and the heart and the knowledge of the heart is maybe yes, superior.
Oh, there you go. Way to go, Asterix. From a fluid dynamics standpoint, the heart is not a pump, but a flow regulator. Well, that's different than what we were taught at school, for sure. It's just boom, 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 boom. And what you just said there makes sense. I think, what did Blaise Pascal said? Yes, I am quoting an Orthodox thinker because he's right. Just as that priest could say the Gnostics right, but he said, the heart has reasons that reason can never know. And I think that might be right.
There you have it. Yeah.
There you have it. Well, awesome. Well, thanks everybody for showing up. This has been a blast. I always love talking to Darren. Hopefully, we'll not be 7 years next time we talk, but definitely get searching for the divine spark. So much more that we didn't cover that you will be rewarded by. But first, Graham, thanks for keeping us company. Thanks for being the heart that keeps everything flowing.
I just try to keep the pumps going. So always great to be here. Thanks again.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, Darren, great to have you on. Do you have a website, or you just want to send people to your book? I know you're
No,
on
I don't have a
Facebook.
I don't have a website, unfortunately. So no, that just have to be on Amazon. If they look on Amazon, they can find my book there and my other books as well.
And if somebody wants to ask questions or stalk you, what, Facebook?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Facebook. Facebook is probably the best. I'm that age that Facebook is still relevant. You see,
Well,
I'm old. Yeah. Apparently anybody under 30 doesn't use Facebook. It's like for old people. And when I first opened my Facebook account, I did it because I had kids, and I thought, well, they'll probably be into this when they get older. But yeah, no, nobody is. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram, the usual stuff. I can be found there.
If I want to hide something from the kids, Facebook is the place to do it. They'll never be there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Darren. Enjoyed our
Thank
chat.
you, Miguel.
And for everybody else, thank you for being here. Yes, write your own gospel, live your own myth. Ball of confusion, and the band played on. Take care, everybody.